You already know what time it is. Welcome back into the NFL with AJL, episode 34. We're live on a Tuesday, just a bit after 7, but no worries. You know we're coming at you with the live show. We got a packed show tonight. I got a guest in the house, but before we get to anything, please make sure to like and share the stream wherever you may be. Subscribe on YouTube. Get in the comments. Get in the chat. Let us know how you're feeling on this Tuesday as the NFL is officially kicked off. You know about the QR code in the corner of the screen. With the Breeze jersey, scan it. It'll give you every bit of the NFL with AJL social media and podcast content. Get at us on social. Get at us on podcast platforms. Leave us a review. Week 1 of the preseason has officially kicked off. We're going to go over all or most of the rookie QB debuts. Zeke and Dalvin are officially signed. Michael Oher says the blind side really might be a lie. We're going to get into that and much more tonight on episode 34. And like I mentioned, I do have a guest for the show tonight. First timer, should have been on long time ago. My boy Kian McDermott from the Back Pocket
What's
Podcast.
going on? Finally, man.
How are you?
Sorry, I'm good. Everyone here, the reason that I'm late is not Adam. That was on me. We had some Wi-Fi problems, but we're back. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yes, bro. 100%. You're absolutely welcome. Michael Darby, you're absolutely correct. The Saints are winning the Super Bowl. I'm in my gear tonight. That's not an official take, but I'm like, hey, we could definitely represent the NFC. I'm on my shit. I'm talking my shit. The NFL is back, especially after the preseason with the Saints. And Derek Carr, don't want to get too much ahead of myself, though, but like I said, man, we got an absolutely packed show tonight. And we're going to go ahead and take it right off the top as the preseason has officially kicked off. We got some rookie QBs that we got in our spotlight, I guess, under our monocle, if you will. And we'll start from the top and just head down. So kind of give me your overall breakdown or some of your takeaways that you saw from the very small sample size of CJ Stroud in his preseason debut, Kian.
Yeah, a lot. So again, kind of, I would say a mixed bag, but I do think the general consensus was, I would say, a pro from CJ Stroud. I think he's a guy who went into preseason, showed a lot of what he did at Ohio State. Obviously, prototypical size quarterback, really good arm, accurate. And I think with a lot of people where you had the Bryce Young, the CJ Stroud, and where a lot of people took CJ Stroud over was that accuracy as a quarterback. And I think that was reflected in preseason. Again, a guy who you look at the Texans' past successful quarterback, Deshaun Watson, I think you can see a lot of similarities between the two guys, similar height, I would say similar arm talent. So again, I think a pretty pro, I would say positive from CJ Stroud. The one thing for me is just, it's weird because I feel like this year for quarterbacks, at least, the sample sizes the past 2 years have been bigger. I feel like we've seen quarterbacks play more. So again, that's just one of the other things. But I will say, I think preseason overhypes or, quarterbacks. I do think it is definitely a kind of, I don't, it's a good tell. Like, obviously, if the quarterback's throwing 5 picks, that's there. Right. But I do think, I do think it's not a be all, So I think, but again, CJ Stroud, obviously you always want to be a pro there, but I do think, started off strong.
Yes, absolutely. I don't know if I'll agree with starting off strong with CJ Stroud, but I will agree with the fact that, you talk about preseason and it's really not a whole lot to be taken away from it. I've listened to multiple shows, multiple podcasts, as we had the preseason late last week going in through the weekend and we saw the rookies unfolding and, probably a million times they're like, but it is the preseason, this is the preseason here. And it's like Michael Darby comments and says, Saints are winning the Super Bowl. I'd love to feel that way after, what Derek Carr did, throwing the touchdown pass to Kirkwood, seeing Era in the preseason. But, the time to actually get it together to get the roster spot is preseason. And again, if they're throwing 5 picks, that's the place to do it. That's okay. I'm not a big guy on training camp, not a big guy on pro days, but when we finally do get in the pads, we finally do get the first looks of, just for me, really the preseason, the rookie QBs rather, that's what I really like to dig into. First couple dropbacks from CJ Stroud were okay. The thing for me is he seemed very stiff, like the legs were very minimal. And I know he wasn't a guy that really moved around a whole lot and manipulated the pocket. And maybe I'm spoiled a little bit off what he did to my dogs, in the game before the national championship. I think that game for him, and like many people have said, really elevated CJ Stroud to that number 2 pick and really put him on a lot of people's boards, being that Ohio State quarterback coming out. We know the Ohio State QBs, of course, don't get a lot of recognition, especially coming into the NFL. He did deliver a nice simple throw in one of his early dropbacks, took a horrible sack, which I didn't like. And then you see his third drop back where I think he actually does Used a little bit of play action. I don't really remember, but he did escape the pocket, scrambled a little bit, had a chance to climb in the pocket too before he threw that really awful interception. And you could tell that he didn't handle pressure super well. Now, of course, you saw he was under a good bit of pressure, which you didn't like to see. But his last drop back was probably the cleanest pocket he had all night. Drop back was good. Not sure if his receivers were covered downfield, but he held the ball for a minute, of course, before scrambling. Ends the night with 2 for 4 on passing, 13 yards, an interception, and sacked. He only went from under center twice. Both of those were actually complete passes. He wasn't pressured on those. Looked pretty decent on the play action. But my one big takeaway, and it's kind of the same with Bryce Young, as we're going to get into him a little later down the line, is it was very simple for the first and second overall picks in the NFL preseason week one. A lot of one-step drops, a lot of one reads, maybe a little bit of play action. I don't even think Bryce Young got a chance to roll out and kind of manipulate the pocket like we know he's able to do. But now on to Anthony Richardson, who I say is Trey Lance 2.0. He got a pretty decent sample size. I was excited to see what he did on the field, and I know Colts fans are very hyped about him. The more that things build for him, the more that I root for him, and I was a fan of him as he came out of Florida. Yes, only 13 games in college, but how did you feel about AR-15 for the first time with the horseshoe officially on his helmet on the field?
Yeah. Again, another mixed bag because he's a guy who minimal dropbacks, had an interception. I believe he had around 60 something yards, not too much. But for me with Anthony Richardson is whatever, I guess, about what we think, because they just named him, I believe it was today or the day before, he will be the starter going into the season, which if you were to tell people that 2 months ago before he got drafted, or even when he got drafted to the Colts, that he would be the starter, people would be like, you're crazy. Like a guy who obviously had a lot to work on. That's why he wasn't the first overall pick, the second overall pick, because if he was a polished quarterback, that guy's going number one, and it's not even close because every year, and obviously
you were about to say the physique.
Every year when we do, like you do draft stuff, whenever we do draft stuff, it's always, okay, this guy comp him to him. This guy comp him to him. Even like Trevor Lawrence, like there were the comparisons. Anthony Richardson to me, and I've been doing obviously I'm young. I've been doing draft stuff for 3 years. He's the one guy where I've been like, I just cannot find a quarterback who is exactly like him. And so I think it was tough for me because I feel a lot of, Cam Newton.
Yeah.
Some people would say Trey Lance. I think there are glaring differences. Cam Newton, I guess I'll give you that. That's probably the closest comparison.
Yeah.
But I think Anthony Richardson's arm, and Cam Newton's great arm, Anthony Richardson's arm is ridiculous. Like it's absolutely ridiculous. And it's just that ability to hit any spot downfield. And again, the accuracy was a question. But I think for the Colts,
major one.
Yeah, for me, it was just, again, preseason to me this year for quarterbacks, it was a lot harder to draw conclusions, even though, like I just talked about, it's, I don't like doing that in preseason, but again, small sample size. I like what I saw. I didn't see a ton of rushing from him or a lot of that ability to get out of the pocket, which I would have liked to see a little more just because he's kind of that improvising quarterback. But again, not a amazing, oh my God type performance. But I feel like that's always how it is. Like it's always the Malik Cunningham, the guys who don't get drafted who have the fantastic preseason. It's never kind of those the high end pick. So mixed bag again for him.
Right. And you see, sometimes we wonder if it's coddling, like D'Amico Ryans, new head coach for CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, new head coach in Frank Reich, Anthony Richardson, new head coach in Shane Steichen. So you wonder if it's going to be some coddling versus like Will Levis, who got a big sample size under Mike Vrabel, who's a veteran, Stetson Bennett, who got the biggest sample size of week one for preseason under a Super Bowl champion and Sean McVay. So it's interesting how you see some things play out, and you even think about Trevor Lawrence's first snaps and Justin Fields and Zach Wilson's and Trey Lance's, and you just see as you feel like the coaches are more into the game, into the NFL, more veteran years on their back, we might see that bigger sample size. But I will agree, I wanted to see more out of CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson, Bryce Young, as Levis and Bennett did get the bigger sample size. But nonetheless, we did get to, take a small look. 7 for 12 for Anthony Richardson on the day, 67 yards, a touchdown, a pick, some scrambles, a couple high throws. He had some completions. He had clean pockets most of the time, which did make me happy. I don't think a whole lot of those Colts starters were in there. I did see Quentin Nelson, running up a few times to pick up Anthony Richardson off the ground. So knowing that he was on the field, of course, one of the better linemen in the game. He had a nice throw over midfield. I like the outside pass to Alec Pierce before he threw the bomb that everyone is talking about, that Alec Pierce drop. That was his best throw of the day by far. The
And
drop
that,
back
yeah,
was great. The read, the arm angle. I mean, he put it in the breadbasket, literally on a dime, stepped up into the pocket with a little pressure. I mean, that was impressive for a guy like Anthony Richardson to be able to pull off. Again, the rushing ability was on display with the athleticism. Anthony Richardson performed about as well as I thought he could. And we saw the ugly interception, of course. I actually kind of have it described, and it makes perfect sense, right? So it's his third drop back. He's coming out of the gun. He didn't complete his drop back. He stutter steps because he's got two free rushers in his face. One guy actually jumps to like hesitate the pump fake. Richardson throws off of his back foot for the interception. And then he, comes out for the one and only play action of the game, actually, as well, threw across his body, under pressure. So you saw some good things. You saw some, bad habits / traits that made Anthony Richardson literally the least accurate quarterback out of 45 FBS quarterbacks for the college football season. Now going on into the number one pick in Bryce Young, who went 4 for 6 on the day with just 21 yards. You guys get in the comments, get in the chat. Let us know also what you're feeling about some of these rookie QBs as we get into it. Give me some of your takeaways, again, from a small sample size, or what I guess you could see out of Bryce Young's NFL debut.
Bryce Young to me is, I don't know what you could really take out of it, just because that was the most minimal one out of any quarterback. Right. I mean, he had like 11 snaps, 7 dropbacks. That's nothing. Like I mean, there's that's really nothing. Right. And I think the reason the Panthers do that, and back to what you said about the new head coaches and obviously these guys getting minimal snaps, is because the Panthers know Bryce Young is going to be starting week 1. Yep. The Texans know CJ Stroud will be, and the Colts obviously now know that Anthony Richardson will be. But like you said, Will Levis, a guy who is battling for a position right now.
Right.
So that's always a thing. It's always, even Stetson Bennett, Matthew Stafford, I think, is at the ends of his time in the Rams. And I think Stetson Bennett, I wouldn't be surprised if Stetson Bennett was, the classic late round quarterback who starts and is really good and takes a starting job. Kirk Cousins. Exactly. I mean, we see it a lot. Yep. So, again, sorry, I keep straying away from the question, but again, I mean,
good, man. It's a podcast.
Bryce Young to me is, it's just kind of one of those things where like, we know how good he is. And to me, the real test will be obviously that week 1, just because I think, I don't know what, it's not the takeaways. Like we saw kind of the Bryce Young that we thought we would out of Alabama. But again, to me, the real test is that week 1.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, small sample size, 6 pass attempts, 4 completions, 21 yards. Everything was shotgun passes, nothing from under center. I don't know if this guy's really going to be able to play from under center, as he looks and feels like he's smaller than Kyler Murray, of course, one of the smallest players in the league. Very minimal dropbacks, one read and release, half-step drops. I thought the arm looked good and fluid. He stood in the pocket well, took a couple of hits. Only 1 sack taken, but he did fold up when the pressure did, start to really collapse on him. So he didn't want to give his body up per se, and try to fight out of it, because he knows he's a smaller player, and realistically you don't want to take those risks in the preseason, of course. But I think what I'm going to want to see more is more of that play action movement, which again we saw none from Bryce Young, and really how he handles the offense going forward. Will he be able to take those reins from Frank Reich, or not really take those reins, but implement that system well? Will he be able to deal with those play actions? Will he be able to continuously go through his progressions and go through his reads in the NFL in week 1, as he gets through these next few preseason games, which I firmly believe he can. He was the number 1 overall pick for a reason. Bryce Young was the Heisman winner for a reason, and he played a national championship game for a reason as well. Again, a small sample size, but from what we did see, it was acceptable for sure. Now, to the last 2 players here who did have the 2 biggest sample sizes and were ironically the 2 latest drafted quarterbacks of, the ones we're talking about here, the latest drafted quarterbacks of the 2023 draft. Will Levis finished the day 9 for 14, 85 yards, and a touchdown. I'm not going to lie. After I turned off that Will Levis tape and watched every snap of what he did, I was pretty damn impressed. He didn't feel lazy. He didn't feel airy behind his throws, but what say you, Ken?
Yeah, that's, again, Will Levis, another guy who I saw a couple of those snaps, and I think contrary to what we saw in training camp, a guy who I was like, ooh, he looks ugly. He looks like he's going to be the quarterback 3. It wasn't like that. And obviously Malik Willis was outperforming a guy who was playing very well. So to me, I think that Will Levis game was very assuring, because another guy who, like, this guy was getting first overall pick hype for a couple days. I remember making a video before we did our draft live stream, and I was like, this has got to be the dumb, like, this is not real. Like, people who believe this stuff, like, he's not going number 1 overall. And again, it's the people who just want clicks, but very exciting. And I think, funny enough, I think, him and Tannehill, two similar guys. I just think Levis has that size and that rushing ability. A guy who I was saying I really liked him coming into the draft. I think a guy
Yeah.
who has all of the talent, all of the size to be a successful quarterback. And I think obviously with the Titans now getting Hopkins, having Henry, he definitely has a cushiony system. He can give the ball to Henry. And you have Hopkins, who obviously best hands in the league still. So
Yeah.
I think for Levis, it was exciting. The real question now is, where does that put him in the ranks of quarterbacks? Because I think going into preseason, it was okay. It's the quarterback 2 fight, and I thought he was losing it. But now it's like, can he get into that QB1
I think it
argument?
can.
Yeah, and I guess, from seeing that, I think he can. And again, if Vrabel, like you said, very experienced coach, a guy who knows what it takes to win, and know what it takes to win in playoff games.
Right.
And obviously, the Titans made a statement. Like, they got Hopkins, they're definitely a contender now in their division. So I think Levis has all of it to prove, and I think that was a great way to kind of put his footprint in the game.
Yes, absolutely. And we consistently talk about how Mike Vrabel gets the most out of his guys, whether it's defense, offense, special teams. Like, he milks his players. He understands or rather the players understand, the level of dedication that you really have to have in order to play for Mike Vrabel. And I think Will Levis is going to pick up on that, sense that. And hell, I want to even say week 1 of the preseason really showed that, because he mostly looked great. He was very calm. He was very composed. That's what I liked a lot. He didn't look rattled. The mechanics were nice. The release was very fluid. His stature in the pocket, I thought, looked really good. And he didn't, like I said, as we got into his name for the segment, he didn't really look lazy on his throws or loose like I thought he did at times in Kentucky, like I thought he did at his pro days, like I thought he did at the combine. And maybe I'm looking in too much of a pro day and a combine, but the college tape, I didn't necessarily like to see, what he showed me at times. So I was nervous as he went into the league, and he did have the interception at the very end of the game. He almost goes unscathed. Some overthrows as well. But, overall, again, I was very impressed by his composure, arm, and mechanics all around. And I really feel better about Will Levis. I would say I'm leaning in more. I'm buying in more to Will Levis. I'm buying more of that stock. He's not going to be a quarterback that I think is, going to have a higher ceiling than an Anthony Richardson, but with the way he played, he gives you some things to think about. He gives you some things to look back on as you're, going through your notes for a show or whatever the case may be. And it's like, okay, Will Levis is actually here to compete, or at least you hope he is, based off of how he played in that first preseason game. And I love how you gave the respect to DeAndre Hopkins as well. Still the best hands in the league, even on the other side of 30 years old. That's what I'm talking about. Now into the final quarterback, and, even a few more if you possibly have some after. Stetson Bennett, the Georgia boy, back-to-back national champion, 29 pass attempts, 17 completions, 191 yards, a touchdown, 2 dropped interceptions at the very beginning, which wasn't very sexy, and he was sacked as well. What were your takeaways from the biggest sample size of the rookie quarterbacks that we saw in the first week of preseason?
Dude, Stetson Bennett. I mean, it's
like,
go.
Let me hear it. I'm here for it.
It's like, I could have predicted it though. Like, I feel like Stetson Bennett is just a guy who, like, obviously the dude freaking was in the college for 10 years, so I think he kind of had to do that.
I had to do that.
Yeah. But yeah, again, a guy who, it's like I said, like, it's just the quintessential successful in college, doesn't get the hype, gets drafted late, going in now to a perfect situation with an aging quarterback, a team that obviously is having a terrible Super Bowl hangover. And I think a guy who could take the starting job. I definitely think he could take the starting job. I don't think it'll be week 1, but I think a guy who definitely can. Obviously, you talk about size, not ideal for him, but he's a winner. Like, he's a guy who has proven 100%. That he can be a winner. Yeah, and regardless if people say, oh, well, Georgia had the best team, blah, blah, blah. Like, okay, I mean, the quarterback's, the helm of the offense. So
Georgia had a lot of great teams with better quarterbacks than Stetson Bennett that didn't win the fucking title.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just, again, he's a winner. I have a ton of respect for him. So I think, go out and ball, and he obviously did that. Obviously, every quarterback's gonna have the ugly throw, no matter who you are going to the NFL. Going to the NFL, it's an adjustment. It's it's like that in every sport. Going to the next level, it's an adjustment no matter who you are. But again, Stetson Bennett, I think is putting himself on the map, and I really would love to see it. Again, a guy who he's showing up for those small quarterbacks. So hopefully he goes and kind of continues that. But again, after biggest sample size, biggest production rate out of all the quarterbacks in terms of just being able to complete passes. And so again, I'm very happy for him. I'm rooting for him.
Yeah, me too, man. Big time. Not only because I'm a Georgia fan, not only because he did bring us back-to-back national titles, but because I was actually impressed by a quarterback for our team stepping up in not one, but 2 seasons that both times he steps up in big games, in
Yep.
big moments in those seasons, we go on to win the national title. People forget when we won the first title game, I want to say it was after he threw that kind of ugly fumble that rolled off the edge of his hand and goes out of bounds, and Alabama gets the ball at like the 10. Stetson Bennett, I don't think, had an incomplete pass after that, had 2 touchdown passes, and then also in the game against Ohio State, steps up big, 2 touchdown, I think it was maybe 1 or 2 touchdown passes, but to know that he was able to hang in the pocket, he was able to rely on his arm, he was able to air it out, make the reads, have the confidence in the grit of the biggest games of your career and of the season, and be able to deliver in back-to-back seasons. If we could have brought Stetson back for the three-peat, I would have done it. And I absolutely mean that, because I love the composure that he had. Give him his 11th year, his 27th year, his 47th year in college. That's fine with me. Let him redshirt 17 times over.
Yeah.
If he's going to play quarterback in the NFL the way that he did in Georgia, I do think he's going to have a very Kirk Cousins-esque career. Again, 17 for 29, 191 yards, touchdowns, 191 yards, a touchdown, 2 drop.
191 touchdowns. That would be quite a.
Hey, 191 touchdowns, or he's a bust, bro. No doubt about it. But 2 of his first 3 throws were almost picks, and the mobility looked pretty good on play action. I was actually pretty impressed on how he can move. I knew he was able to do that, but just to see him do it again, he looks great in the Rams uniform, by the way. It's pretty crazy. The delivery was solid. I thought he looked really comfortable, and he was really agile in the pocket. He had really good pocket presence, and I think that was the biggest compliment from this game. He wasn't twitchy. He was very fluid. It felt like he was behind that, 5-star Georgia offensive line. Like he was really just in Kirby Smart's system all over again, just going through the plays, understanding it. He did have some overthrows and some misfires, but that's to be given. He picks up on the pressure well, and he took just 1 sack. But, one thing that, again, I really took away alongside the comfortability, how comfortable and agile he was in the pocket, he dead serious looked like a blend of Stafford and Goff while playing in that preseason game. Really more leaning on the Goff side because, a little lankier, a little smaller. But what I love the most, and again, the most decorated coach out of the 5 rookie quarterbacks that we're talking about here in the segment, McVay really let him play action, deep shots, over the middle of the field, like major confidence in Stetson Bennett, and you saw it and you felt it. And McVay is a guy, youngest ever Super Bowl winner as a coach. McVay is a guy that buys into his players, just like Vrabel. He's going to milk them. He's going to get it out of them. And to know that it feels like Stetson Bennett's already seen, maybe implemented 60-65% of the offense. Might be a little bit prisoner of the moment because it's a big sample size, but to know that he was allowed to throw 29 passes, be able to move around. I love the multiple deep shots. I love the play action. And I really hope that McVay got a gem at the end of everything, man. But before we get out of here, let's rank them. Maybe it's not worth a damn, but who cares? We love talking football. That's why it's the NFL. Preseason week 1 quarterback performances. We can go 1 to 5, 5 to 1.
Let's go 5. Let's go bottom to top. We'll make them wait. We'll go bottom to top.
Yeah, absolutely. Guest first, as always, man. You can go from 5 to 1. I know it's probably not much of an explanation / it is a short list. So
okay, so if we're taking all the hype, all the pick, where they were taken off. I think 5.
Performance.
I would go Stroud. 4. 5. I would go Young because he did nothing.
Yeah.
4. I would go Stroud. 5. I would go Richardson. I would actually put Bennett at 2. Wait. Sorry. Yeah, Bennett at 2, and I would put Levis at 1 because I was so much more surprised. Like I said, contrary to popular belief, I actually was like, "Hey, Stetson Bennett makes sense." Like he's a guy I was like, "That makes complete sense." He would go do that.
Right.
But Bennett and Levis to me are close. I think they're 1A, 1B.
Yeah, very close for sure. And I have damn near the same list as you. Bryce Young at 5, CJ Stroud at 4, Anthony Richardson at 3, Will Levis at 2, and then Stetson Bennett at 1. Again, love the sample size from Bennett and Levis. Richardson had a pretty good sample size as well. You go and look, he actually had about 5 or 6 minutes worth of snaps on tape. That was really worth looking through. CJ Stroud was under pressure consistently, didn't really feel like he was using the legs well, and Bryce Young maybe took 6 total steps in his snaps that he actually had at the quarterback position. But you guys get in the comments, get in the chat, let us know what you think as we put our monocle, our spotlight on the NFL rookie QBs that debuted in week 1 of the preseason. But not speaking of rookies, speaking of veterans, a couple veterans were signed yesterday. We'll start with one and then we'll get to another one later in the show. As the Jets, as I said, it would make great sense for them too, and they should. They officially signed Dalvin Cook to a 1-year, up to $8.6 million deal. Aaron Rodgers, Dalvin Cook, Mecole Hardman, couple of other weapons that were on Aaron Rodgers' wish list. All right, Kian, they keep loading up. Dalvin Cook is officially here, but we'll start with something kind of simple. Give me Dalvin Cook's 2023 stat line now that he's with Gang Green and chasing a ring, I guess, with Aaron Rodgers.
Okay. It's not going to be anything insane. I think Breece Hall is still the guy there.
Breece Hall's still the future back.
I think so. But the thing is, and I was talking about this with us, is obviously Breece Hall's coming off the ACL, and all Super Bowl teams are running back by committee. I think Cook will have, I'm going to say 650 yards. I'm going to say 5 touchdowns. I'm going to say 25 receptions for 278 yards, because I think it's going to be middle.
Yeah.
Because he's such a good downhill runner. Like, there's no, like, he's as good as the next guy. Yeah. He's such a good downhill runner. He's hard to tackle.
Elite. I would easily say that. Dalvin Cook is a running back in his league.
Yeah. It's just, to me, I don't see him getting a Viking like he was getting in the Vikings. He's not going to be getting
1,500 yard, 270 carry, 12 touchdown season. Yeah. No, I'm right there with you on the stat line too. I've got him a little higher. I've got him at least rushing for 800 yards. And here's why. Breece Hall coming off the torn ACL. If Dalvin Cook was asked today to start all 17, which he just did for the first time in his career, and you can argue that he's getting healthier, I would feel great about this running back room, because you would not only have Dalvin Cook, you would have Breece Hall. Excuse me. Also, Michael Carter as well. That is still trying to get some touches, but we saw when he came out of the draft, he had a lot of excitement around him, and rightfully so. He was a good player. But I think Dalvin Cook, just kind of sticking to the rushing aspect, at least 800 yards rushing and 6 touchdowns. That's even with Breece Hall coming back and being the feature back. The big thing for me is I could see this be a team where, like, possibly both of these backs have 800 or 900 yards rushing, because I believe the Jets are really going to look to do that this year. You look at the fact that they were 9th worst overall. 7th worst overall in rush yards per game. Now, yes, Breece Hall did get hurt. Obviously, they fell off a cliff a little bit, kind of peaked early on in the season. But considering the running back room, moving on through it now, does this move make sense considering they do have a Breece Hall? Yes, he is coming off of injury. They do have a Zonovan Knight. They do have a Michael Carter. Does it make sense to you to see, the Jets signed Dalvin Cook after we kind of heard originally they didn't know about the usage, how he was going to be in the offense? I believe numbers were possibly a thing that they weren't agreeing to.
No matter how you spin it, it's a good signing. It's, and again, I was talking to this with obviously the people that I do shows with, and I was like, and like I just mentioned, it's running back by committees. Like, that's really, in this league, is kind of what wins you Super Bowls. Yeah. The one thing is, though, is Dalvin Cook and Breece Hall are those exceptions, because they're two guys who can play 17 games and be extremely productive.
Crazy.
Obviously, Breece Hall, we saw that. Yeah, I mean, the 1-2 punch there is ridiculous. But yeah, it makes it you're adding a elite running back for a 1-year deal. And it's pretty clear what the Jets are doing. They're like, hey, we have a second-year guy who's coming off an ACL injury who we're probably not going to be obviously putting as much pressure on. Right. So we're going to bring in a guy for a good deal. We have a new quarterback, and we're going to be able to give the ball, because they obviously want to protect Rodgers. They're obviously going to be handing the ball off a lot now. So, again, like I said, no matter which way you spin it, it's a good signing. It improves the team. And in every single sport, it's becoming more and more, the championship teams aren't teams that strengthen positions of weakness, but teams that strengthen positions of strength.
Yep. And
it's that, I feel like, is what the Jets are doing, and it makes sense. And I wouldn't even say now it's technically a position of strength, just because you have a guy coming off an ACL injury. So it makes a world of sense to me.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you said it very well. No matter which way you look at it, whichever way the cookie crumbles, however you want to cut the steak, whatever the case is, it's a good signing. It's a great signing, because it's an elite running back going next to a back that a lot of people probably thought was going to be elite by the time the season ended. Yes, even as a rookie, because we saw the hype around Breece Hall. We saw him coming out of the draft. We saw how the Jets were going to use him, and his rookie campaign was great, unfortunately, until it was cut short. by the ACL injury. But, now you have a very capable of being elite together backfield in a loaded division, loaded AFC. I've already said Dalvin is elite. Breece Hall's probably on his way there. Now he's got a veteran in the room, a true running back. Not that Breece ever wasn't, but a true running back to be able to look up to, that mentorship, that veteran presence in a locker room. I say it a lot, and I think it's very true.
And similar guys.
Sometimes people will make signings, and some people are like, well, why did they sign them? I'm like, hey, it might not be a lot. Prime example, I'll go a little homer take here. Jimmy Graham. We're not expecting Jimmy Graham to probably even have 400 or 500 yards receiving this year, but he'll be a red zone target, and he'll mentor Juwan Johnson, who is definitely next in line for the tight end position. So it's just kind of signings like that, kind of like when J.J. Watt went to the Cardinals. At first, I didn't understand it, but then you're like, okay, a young Kyler Murray, a young Budda Baker. Yeah, those, might be kind of different sides of the ball there, but veteran leadership definitely matters. I think that's another thing that the Jets kind of wanted to see here is like, let's get more older faces on this team. Aaron Rodgers, clearly the oldest player. Dalvin Cook might be the second oldest player now. But this is a very young team, young coach, young defense, young offense, young core. And you like to see, this type of move. I feel like he's going to get plenty of short yardage carry situations, third down opportunities with short yardage. We know he can be a receiver. And you definitely need somewhat of a 1-2 punch in the run game. They got it. A lot of it better than a running back by committee. And I'm excited to see, what it's really going to bring to the table. I hate to say it, Kian, but the more that the Jets make these damn moves, Aaron Rodgers, Dalvin Cook, Mecole Hardman, I'm actually pretty hyped about the Mecole Hardman signing. Loved him out of Georgia, not even because I was a fan, but I saw what he was able to do. I'm hoping with Aaron Rodgers, and we had some stories about how he wasn't necessarily, meshing with the Chiefs offense and Andy Reid and all. I'm hoping Saleh and Rodgers and really Hackett can kind of carve out a way for him. Alan Lazard, Randall Cobb, the defense is built. Feels like the Jets are here, dude. I mean, it really does.
He'll be their Tyreek Hill.
I'm hoping so. And, I kind of thought that because the Chiefs had Hardman and Hill at one time, really two of the fastest players, and Madden backed it up, by the way. Apparently, I'm really bad at 24 is really bad. I haven't bought the game since 22, but maybe we'll see if it happens. Are you buying into the Jets more with this move, bro? I mean, what? Well, let me start there because I feel like I got a couple things to say. But are you buying into the Jets more with this move? Because I know I am. I feel like every move they make, I'm like leaning in, and I'm just saying more. And I'm like, are they going to do it? I mean, we see the super team with the Bucs. We see the homecoming of Matthew Stafford. But what say you, man?
Yeah, I'm a Giants fan. And
I'm not gonna lie, I just heard the pain. You're like, I'm a Giants fan.
Hey, there's not that much pain. We're in the super. There's not that much pain anymore. But
y'all are looking bright though.
Yeah,
if I was a fan, I'd be content.
Exactly. And this is gonna completely contradict everything we just said. But I've actually always had a soft spot for the Jets. I've never been like, oh, dude, I hate the Jets. Yeah. I've always been like, hey, man, I've always kind of been a fan. Same with the Bills. Like, I've never had some hatred for them.
Right.
I don't know. It's a mixed bag because it's like, look, yeah, like you just said, Tom Brady won a Super Bowl. Stafford won a Super Bowl. Broncos, horrible.
Yeah.
And I was watching a video the other day, and I think there's a lot of similarities between the Broncos last year and the Jets this year. But again, I think Aaron Rodgers to me is more of a serial winner than Russell Wilson. And again, it's marginal there, but it's hard. Like this always happens every year. And it's what I love about the NFL. It's like, we can say as much as we want, and the thing that no one ever thought of happens. So I am buying in, though. I will say that I'm buying in because I think I really like Saleh. I thought that hire was great. I think Aaron Rodgers fits this system well. Him and Garrett Wilson seem to be gelling well. Garrett Wilson, on the other hand, I think that dude's going to be absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Dalvin Cook makes
15,
sense.
1600
Oh yeah. He could be
seriously.
And by next year we could be saying this is the best receiver in the league. Like,
Oh yeah.
Right. Like there. Right. Again, obviously he has quite a mountain to climb this season, but
yeah.
I am buying in. The long way around, I am buying in. I think it all depends does Aaron Rodgers stay healthy? Does Garrett Wilson stay healthy? It's always health. Like, and that's the thing with this sport is it's such a high contact sport. And obviously, we saw in training camp the amount of ACLs and the amount of just obviously non-contact stuff, like the Joe Burrow injury. I was watching that and I'm like, he literally was he was literally running.
Yeah.
And it's just like
that. On a play action.
And it's obviously just like, just it's stuff like that. So obviously not hoping that if that happens, but I am buying in. I think this team should be a contender, and they're obviously sending a message to the NFL with the Dalvin Cook signing.
Yeah, same, man. Same. And I was one of the few that sat up here and I said, Jets, don't walk away from Aaron Rodgers, run. Because Aaron Rodgers, like, it just, and I'll put it out there again. New head coach, pretty inexperienced, kind of unstable up until what we've seen recently. Maybe he's just playing the part correctly. Aaron Rodgers, you go coast to coast. You never really mesh well with young players. We know kind of your demands and the attitude problem that we could have. And the Jets work so hard to get where they're at. Like, and maybe they lost so hard to get where they're at, right? Maybe they didn't work so hard to get where they're at, but like they have Sauce Gardner. They have Breece Hall. They have Garrett Wilson. They have some of those guys on the defensive line. They've got that entire defense. Like, they've got the foundation and the core. And then they bring Aaron Rodgers in, and I'm like, hell no. Turn around. Don't go for it at all. But then Aaron Rodgers, the Super Bowl III trophy's looking kind of lonely. Now he's in the, basketball games with Sauce Gardner. Now him and Garrett Wilson are really meshing. And then, I almost actually put on, I can't remember what it was, the topic, but I took it off the lineup a couple weeks back. I try not to like dig into people's actual like character on the show. I try to keep it to their play, but I was like, is Aaron Rodgers turning a new leaf? And I'm taking the bait, bro. I'm buying the stock. Right, I'm leaning in, and it feels like that. Like, this is a new version of Aaron Rodgers. You got a speedster, Mecole Hardman, coming in. You've got a great defense, maybe one of the best that he's ever had in his career, or at least up until recent memory. We know Green Bay was kind of shuffling through good defenses the last couple of years, or at least trying to. Dalvin Cook is there. I don't know, man. As much as I hate to say this live, I don't want to doubt the Jets and look like an idiot if they win 13 games and lose in the Super Bowl. Realistically, like and I'm okay with eating crow. I'm okay with being wrong totally, but I'm starting to see signs from the Jets that I feel like I can't deny. And this Dalvin Cook signing is, I guess, putting the cherry on top for me. The whipped cream on top of the sundae, the whatever you want to call it, right? Like, it is the perfect signing. It's a perfect combination.
And it's even Aaron Rodgers, like back to like, he's kind of a dick. Like, he kind of has a reputation.
No, there's no kind of about it. He
like,
he can be a prudent ass at times.
And I guess whatever the acid trips or whatever the hell he does has worked. Yeah. So again, I think, obviously the Sauce Gardner and I don't know if you saw the training camp clip of him and Sauce Gardner's handshake, but it's cool. Like, it makes me like them a lot more.
Yeah, and he's getting younger. He's trying to vibe. He's trying to be young. He's trying to do his thing, and whether whatever it is with his family, darkness retreat, all that. Like, I wasn't really here to comment on that. He came out of it. He's with a team that he seems happy with. And ultimately I'm really hoping that he really delivers well. But guys, get in the comments. Let us know what you think of the Jets signing Dalvin Cook 1 year up to $8.6 million. Gave you the stat line if it made sense. Are you buying into the Jets more with this move? Keen and I definitely are. But let's get into a topic that's something I almost took back off the lineup, but I moved something for this because you want to talk about a losing culture still crying when they get a really great pickup. You're going to look at the Washington Commanders and Ron Rivera, I guess, allowing this report to slip out. So Ron Rivera says that Eric Bieniemy's coaching style is, quote, rubbing players the wrong way. It's a little concerning. It's off-putting. And I think this is quite hilarious because you're talking about an offense that has been very anemic the last few years, a team that has not been highly regarded, within the last decade or so. And I'm not going to sit here and absolutely crap on the Washington franchise, the Commanders, the Redskins, the football team, whatever you want to call them, because they have started to look a little bit promising with some of the offensive pieces, some of the defensive pieces. And I said when Eric Bieniemy came in, I said, it's going to be a different offense. It's going to be a different offense. There might be some kinks to be worked out early on, but maybe by week 5, week 7, hopefully they're going to be rolling. And also with Ron Rivera, who is on my hot seat this year, love Ron Rivera as a coach, big coaches, big players guy, big defensive guy. But he's just not it. It's not a fit for him with Washington any longer. We saw what he did for Carolina. He elevated them. We saw what he did for Washington. He kind of elevated them, got them to the wild card game with Heineke, in which they lost in the year that the Bucs won the Super Bowl. People can say, oh, it was just Andy Reid's defense. No, Eric Bieniemy had influence in that. To have a 2-time Super Bowl champion as an offensive coordinator working with Mahomes, working with some of the best weapons and one of the best, if not the best coach in the league. And you want to say that his coaching style is too aggressive, that he's rubbing you the wrong way? Oh, let's just not take into account that Patrick Mahomes said Eric Bieniemy's coaching style is the reason that I am who I am today. We're talking about a 2-time Super Bowl champion, a 2-time MVP, a Super Bowl MVP. Like, let's just be real. Let's just call it what it is. So do you think this report should have even been spilled? I mean, we can cut this anyway. Like, how sad is this? That this is actually
like
something that is getting out from such a piss poor franchise, offensively,
Yeah.
anyways, of recent memory.
I mean, like, tough shit. Like deal with it. Like, it's kind of like it's exactly what you said. Like, Eric Bieniemy is one of the most prolific offensive coordinators we've seen in the past several years. I think you can contribute their Super Bowl wins more to Bieniemy than to Andy Reid. Like, I think that's a very valid point. I think that's a very valid point. I think when you see what he's done with Patrick Mahomes is revolutionary. Obviously, it's 50-50, but I do think I'm a big believer in Eric Bieniemy is a huge part of why this team is able to win Super Bowls. And I don't think Washington, and look in your own division, Eric Bieniemy plays with Patrick Mahomes, develops him into a Super Bowl winning quarterback. The Giants bring in Brian Dable, coach Josh Allen to be a fantastic quarterback. They're very successful. If Washington can do that with Bieniemy, they will be very successful. Obviously, Bieniemy is the offensive coordinator, but I think the reason he took the job is because he's their play caller. I might be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure, because everyone was like, well, why would he go to Washington when he has the same position? But I believe it's because he's calling the calls for them, where I believe Andy Reid was doing that in Kansas City. So yeah, again, like you said, it's a report that's just, Ron Rivera, what are you doing? Bieniemy is a fantastic hire. And I think like Ron Rivera, realistically, Bieniemy will have your job within the next year or two. So I think that's kind of, who knows, maybe it's Ron Rivera who's like, damn, this guy is actually, good, and he might be coming from my, again, I doubt it's actually that, but look, exactly like you said, kind of repeating what you said, a proven winner, you follow a proven winner. If he says jump off a bridge, you jump off a bridge. If he said, do what he says, obviously, like he said. And again, the guy in the comments here says Caleb Williams, Washington should tank for Caleb Williams. You look at Patrick Mahomes freaking copy and paste almost. Caleb Williams is kind of that guy. So maybe they go do that. But again, I think Bieniemy is not a guy who, I don't know, but I would be very surprised if Bieniemy's like, let's tank. I think he's going to be like, look, we're going to put on some pressure in this division. So yeah, it's kind of just like a, deal with it. Again, we don't know what's going 100%. Behind the scenes, but I agree with what you said.
Yeah, Sports PSP, what's good, man? It's no coincidence that I actually talk about the Commanders for once, and that is Sports PSP's team. He also said I still have the Bills winning the division. I think he might have been referencing back when we were talking about the Jets. Yeah, very possible. I can't remember who I have winning the AFC East. I'll be putting out an entire playoff bracket here soon once I can finally get to the NFC North records, if this news in the NFL could quit breaking. But there was something that I just looked up, and I'm totally right there with you. You agreeing with me. It's just sad. Can you be any more of a losing franchise? Get an elite play caller that is proven to win. I don't give a shit about the bad interviews, okay? Whatever. He was still winning. Mahomes is still a monster. They still got 2 rings in the last 5-6 seasons. You bring that in, and he's going to be your next head coach. Like I said, Ron Rivera.
That's why they signed him.
He's exactly. And I said it. Bieniemy took this job because he's looking 2-3 years down the line. This was a business decision. He knows he's got the chance to have a Caleb Williams in his ranks possibly, or maybe make a move, because I will say Washington, I think, will officially make a quarterback move once Eric Bieniemy becomes head coach. I don't believe that quarterback move is going to happen under Ron Rivera. Clearly, they're sticking with Sam Howell for the year. It is what it is. I even liked Heineke in the building, I mean, he was a baller. He could game, he can move.
His story, just a guy who has a great story.
Right, 100%. And I think we'll see that quarterback move actually emerge once things happen with Eric Bieniemy. But I'm going to go and read off the offensive rankings for the Washington football team, Commanders, Redskins, over the last, I think this is actually going back to 2013. So in 2012, they were 4th in points. 2013, 23rd, 2014, 26th, 2015, 10th, 2016, 12th, 2017, 16th, 2018, 29th, 2019, dead last, 2020, 25th, 2021, they were the 23rd, and 2022, they were the 24th. That is points per game. They have not been top 10 in the last 7-8 seasons, and they have not been top 15 since 2017. They haven't been top 5 in a decade. Let's go to yards. 2022, they were 20th. 2021, they were 25th. 2020, they were, 30th in yards, if I'm actually looking at that correctly. Yes. 2019, they were 31st in yards. 2018, they were 28th in yards. 2017, they were 16th in yards. I'll stop there. The yards did get a little better. 2012, they were 5th. 2013, they were 9th. And 2016, 17, 2018, no, 2016, they were 3rd. So they've had some seasons of offensive production.
Right.
But really, since the NFL has shifted to a passers league 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, I'm not seeing any of that from Washington. So Washington, get the hell over it. Tough shit. Tough titty, said the kitty, as my mom used to always say, as she still does say.
I like it. I like it. That's a good one. I'm going to use that one. I'm going to use that one.
I mean, it truly, you just have to ask the players, do you have the respect for Bienemy to actually heed what he's saying and maybe even possibly approach him because of his aggressive, off-putting, concerning coaching style. I don't know why this report got out. It's funny a red flag that the report got out. Go ahead.
It's funny how juvenile we can make such a high professional sport. Like, that sucks. Get over it. Like, things that every human hears, like, get over it. But sorry, back to what you're saying.
No, you're good. I mean, like I said, you know, and I think it was very well said. Mahomes literally said, Eric Bieniemy's coaching style made me a better player. Mm-hmm. And now Mahomes is easily a top 7, top 8 quarterback in history because of what he's already done in the NFL. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been episode 34 of the NFL with AJL. I'm tapped in with Kian McDermott from the Back Pocket Podcast. Joining me on tonight's show, we have went over all of the rookie preseason debuts as week 1 has unfolded. The Jets have signed Dalvin Cook, and Ron Rivera lets a stupid report get out from the Washington Commanders. Please make sure to like the show, subscribe wherever you may be watching. Follow us on all social media platforms, whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, at the NFL with AJL, at the Back Pocket Pod. If you guys check the description wherever you're watching us live, the link tree for both shows are there. Of course, the QR code right there over on key inside of the screen. Scan that for every bit of the NFL with AJL content. So, social media and podcast platforms. It's been a great live show, episode 34. We're live just before 8 o'clock on a Tuesday evening. And y'all, please never forget that we're sponsored by Buy and Sell with AJL for all your worldwide professional real estate needs. Whether you're looking to buy a home, sell a home, or invest in real estate, get at them at Buy and Sell with AJL on all social media platforms. Get down in the comments if you'd like. Drop your email there if you'd like to get on their exclusive newsletter. And if you even possibly want to take advantage of their free AI that they just implemented into the business as well to really help with home buyers and sellers needing the pertinent information that you've got in today's real estate market. All right, man, we're going to go ahead and roll into the second half of the show as Johnny Manziel Untold Johnny Manziel did drop on Netflix for free, thankfully, for everyone's viewing pleasure. I don't know if we want to call it the truth about Johnny Manziel. I don't know if maybe any of us are really shocked by what happened. I definitely felt like it was raw, though. Thank God Johnny Manziel actually grew up and grew into himself, not only physically, but mentally, emotionally. We saw him, I guess, mature. Definitely life after football is what was meant for him. But, we'll do some takeaways from this documentary. And, I felt like the film really captured Johnny's emptiness the deeper he got into the game of football. And it really showed how little time and leeway that the NFL will actually give you, man. Did anything surprise you that you didn't know already about Johnny football, or just kind of overall also, how did you feel about this, I guess, finally told story of Johnny fucking football, as he liked to call himself?
Yeah, it's a sad one. And I think it's a story that I'm sure a lot of other players have that they don't tell us. It's just professional sports is a path that you really have to be like, look, a major part of your life is not going to happen. A major social aspect of your life, like, it all is going to change. I think, obviously Manziel, mentally, just kind of how it impacted him. A guy who obviously fantastic in college, goes in And again, just the timeline for the NFL is so
The
quick
NFL stands for not for long.
and it demands so much so quickly. Which obviously fair enough. Like, I think for quarterbacks, we were saying 3 years. You need 3 years. We'll give you 3 years, and then if it doesn't work out, then I think now it's like, okay, 2 years.
Right.
And I think a lot of people are like, okay, 1 year, because if you're losing and there's a quarterback like Caleb Williams and we have the pick and he's there, why wouldn't we take him?
Right.
So it was definitely a little sad. Obviously, I think you put it very well. A guy who obviously was not built to be a football player. Like, I think there are a lot of people who had the talent, but it's just not for them. Like, I'm a big soccer player. I was an outfield player. I then for a year switched into goalie, went up the ranks in teams, but I was like, I just don't love it. Like, it's just not for me. Like, great, I'm on a really good team, but it's just not my thing, So I think obviously for some people, it's the kind of thing where it's like, look, you might have the talent and that's great, but sometimes it's just not for you. And I guess for Manziel, I think the love of the game, depending where you are, is what is so important. No matter how much money you're making, no matter where you are, just that love of the game is
Boom.
everything you have.
Yep.
I'd rather love the game than be paid a ton of money to play it. So I think that's kind of where, and that's the beauty of football and professional sports is like people love what they're doing and they get paid for it. And obviously you can find that obviously in corporate jobs as well, but I guess it's more widespread, I guess, in the NFL. So for the Manziel documentary, obviously super sad, but a guy who I looks to be doing better now. But yeah, again, just a documentary that I think was the ugly truth about Johnny Manziel, or however you want to spin it.
Yeah, definitely some ugly truth, definitely some enlightening truth. The truth, nonetheless, as the graphic says, definitely the truth about Johnny Manziel, his best friend. I think it was Nate, his agent, who fired him. Yes, Johnny Manziel's agent fired him. Johnny Manziel did not fire his agent. The agent fired the client. The client did not fire the agent. Absolutely wild to me. He said he watched 0.0% of film. That was a little bit of a shocker, but then when you looked how he played out in the NFL, when you even look at some of his college highlights, one of his most notable plays, and they've been running it back a lot, is when they play Alabama. He tries to scramble to the right, literally runs into the back of his lineman, fumbles the football around as he's juggling around, and then turns around, spins, and throws it in for a touchdown pass. But just the decision to try to run through that type of pocket was a bad football decision. He just so happened to hit the back of the lineman, catch the ball as he spun around, and then throw a touchdown pass. And I won't take anything away from Johnny Manziel. He was a great football player. First freshman to ever win the Heisman, if I'm not mistaken. And he even said, as I was there, I didn't think I was going to win it. I mean, he was going up against Manti Te'o. That tells you how long ago that he was actually running for the Heisman, and the fact that a freshman at the time, when you only had to play 2 years of college football before they bumped it up to 3, was actually able to go to the NFL. Clearly we see how things played out. Crazy thing that I thought is in his private workout for the Browns, his agent literally said it. His wide receivers, because Manziel was so drunk from the night before, along with his wide receivers, that the day that he had to do his private workout for the Cleveland Browns, his agent and his lawyer were the two people that he was throwing passes to. His agent literally said that Johnny got there, and they were like, "Hey, where are your receivers?" And Johnny was like, "Nope, we're good." And I think what's so funny is the Browns saw that and were like, nope, he's our guy. We want him at 22, 21. We're trading up for him. And yes, let's be real. The Browns were the Browns back then. And what was that, 2013, 14, I think, when 14. They took him. And I keep thinking he was the number one pick, and he wasn't. He damn near fell out of the first round.
I just you said that. I was like, wait, I thought he was the first pick.
He was projected to be. A lot of people said he could have been. His agent, was talking about and they've even showed the graph, if you're number one overall pick, I think your overall total bag is, 20 to 30 million.
Yeah, crazy.
But as it goes down, I mean, you're losing, $2 to $4 million per pick selection in the first round. As the rounds go off, you lose the zeros and so forth and so on. But just to know that was actually a stipulation. And I feel like it really captured, fortunately or unfortunately, the true addiction side of Johnny Manziel. He rents out the LA home. The landlord comes in. There's freaking cocaine, drugs, alcohol all over the table. I mean, Johnny Manziel struggled with drinking. He said, I think win, lose, or tie, booze is gonna fly or something like that. Like the dude was just constantly, constantly knocking him back. And I just enjoyed how vulnerable and raw Johnny Manziel was actually willing to be, because he went on record and he was like, I contemplated taking my life after I got cut from the NFL. And he didn't even last a full 2 seasons in the league before he gets cut. Knowing that he had a 4th-round teammate take his piss test for him, so he was good while he was at Texas A&M, knowing that his dad literally almost faked a heart attack to get Johnny Manziel out of his combine drug test. It was just crazy, the stretches and the feats that people were actually willing to go for him, because even his parents said, like, we couldn't control Johnny anymore. Johnny was literally hanging out with Drake and LeBron and Floyd Mayweather and Justin Bieber. Nobody could tell him anything. And you saw that as Johnny Manziel, he even said it himself, and you even said it too. You can be paid all the money in the world, rather be poor and happy than rich and sad, however people want to cut it. The more Johnny Manziel got deeper into it, okay, now I've actually got the starting job at A&M. Okay, now I'm actually a 1st-round pick. My agent actually landed it for me to be a 1st-round pick. Okay, now I actually got the starting job. Okay, now I actually signed my rookie contract. The deeper he got into what he wanted for the NFL, he said the emptier he felt.
Yeah.
And he literally remembers multiple days waking up and saying, dude, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to. Talking to his agent, like, man, I hate it. I don't love it anymore. And that ultimately reflected for Johnny Manziel. But I'm proud of him for teaming up with a great company like Netflix and a good series like Untold to actually put that out there. Because there was a lot of things about Johnny Manziel that I feel like we didn't know. The autograph business. We remember when he went under scrutiny for signing the autographs. We remember how Nate, his friend, literally said he came from oil money. I mean, you could argue Johnny Manziel, he wasn't a scandal, but damn sure was it a painted pig in a way. You know? And just to think, if he would have actually studied film, if he would have actually heeded to the things that people say, to know that he was that good without an actual dedication to the game is absolutely mind-blowing. But it was, I actually just watched it last night after I finished dinner. It was, only a 70-minute watch on Netflix. So it's pretty good. If you guys haven't seen it, go check it out. It definitely encapsulated what Johnny Manziel was on the field versus what he was off the field. And I'm just proud of him to actually come forward and put that out there. There's a lot of controversy as well, apparently, about Reggie Bush's Heisman, because Reggie Bush got stripped. They thought, people thought they were pouring a lot of money into him or whatever it was. Johnny Manziel was literally signing autographs. Nate said, once the first investigation stopped, I guess. He was like, we went right back to signing autographs. But I don't want to get too much on the Johnny Manziel documentary. Just definitely thought it was interesting, and it made the cut for episode 34. But we did mention earlier in the show that Dalvin Cook and Ezekiel Elliott were signed. Now we're going to get into the fact that Zeke was signed to the New England Patriots for a 1-year deal worth up to $6 million. And we'll start with it just like we did for Dalvin Cook. Give me Ezekiel Elliott's 2023 stat line with the New England Patriots.
You're throwing me off. At first I was like, oh, wait, we're not going to talk about Zeke. And then I thought we were ending the show. And then I love the way the show is flowing. It's very smart. Sorry. But back to what you're saying.
No, you're good.
Not as high in it as it was with Dalvin Cook. I think this will be a pretty underwhelming signing. I think, unfortunately, and obviously we talked about it on our show a couple weeks ago, just about when, before Saquon and Josh Jacobs got their deals, where it's just the running back, by the time they're getting their second contract, it's just they've slowed down so much. And I think, unfortunately, that's where I'm at with Zeke. I still think if you're the Patriots, Ramondre Stevenson should be your guy, just because of
the feature back.
Yeah, just because of his downhill ability. So to me, the Zeke one's not as big of a deal. I don't really have too much to say on it, because I think he's another guy who I think just let it all go. Like he had it all. And I think for me, unfortunately, he just kind of gave it all up. So that's at least where I was at with it, simply because it's just now an Ezekiel Elliott who is, in my opinion, and obviously no hate to him, significantly heavier. Just like it's not as much of an impact signing, in my opinion, as I think some people may say.
Oh Lord, was I muted the whole
Yeah,
time? I
I
think I
could
was
not
muted
hear.
the whole
I
time.
could
I
not hear you.
butchered it. No, it's totally okay. I'll repeat myself. No worries. I'm right there with you. I think it's going to be an underwhelming signing. Underwhelming signing as well because
Mhm.
you look at Bill Belichick, right? This has felt like something that was safe. Zeke feels like he's worth $6 million a year right now. You know,
Yeah.
signs the big contract, holds out, biggest contract that we've ever seen from a quarterback, or not from a quarterback, from a running back, and he absolutely blows it. You know, whether it's injuries, whether it's inconsistency, just not being the Ezekiel Elliott that he was. Bill Belichick is in the post Tom Brady era. Hell, maybe he's in the post Mac Jones era. I don't know. I mean, he's got some questions about the possible quarterback position. I mean, Malik Cunningham started the game as wide receiver and ended the game, taking
Yeah.
snaps at quarterback, and that was enough for some fans. It
Yeah.
really was enough for some fans, and it's comical how it can work out. But kind of like similar thing a little bit with the Dalvin Cook signing to the New York Jets. It's a veteran signing, and I feel like it's the same thing here with being a veteran signing for the New England Patriots. It's safe. Bill Belichick knows that Ezekiel Elliott, can perform in limited situations, and maybe if he is going to be a little more than limited, but not the feature back, he can plug in for that. 2023 stat line, I think it could be maybe 500 to 700 yards, just depending. Maybe 4 to 6 touchdowns, maybe 6 to 7 touchdowns. You never know, but I think it's going to be a main thing of goal line carries, short yardage situations, pass blocking, downs blocking in general. And again, Bill Belichick knows that this is a veteran. This is a guy who can come in and be next to a Ramondre Stevenson, really mentor him. Be that veteran, have that veteran presence, being one of the top running backs over the last few years in the league, and at one point was the best running back in the league, led the league in rushing yards as a rookie. Something that was very remarkable. And you see Ramondre Stevenson also having a big year. We saw him come
Yeah.
out of the draft. Belichick's used him very well. And now bringing in Ezekiel Elliott, again, knowing that he's going to be on the pass blocking down, short yardage situations, goal line carries. I think that's really going to be Zeke's bread and butter. But do you think it was a solid fit? I know you don't think it was a big signing, but do you think it was a solid fit just considering kind of the lack of depth in that running back room, the safety of the move from the New England organization?
Yeah. Again, I think Zeke's not a super risky pickup. Obviously, again, a guy who has a ton of upside. We've seen that. But in terms of fit, I think, yeah, just because he's not a super, in my opinion, I don't think running backs are super scheme dependent. I think they're generally, you can kind of plug and play. So that's what I would think was for Zeke. I don't think it's necessarily in terms of fit. I think it's a fine fit. And I think, again, I wouldn't be surprised if Zeke went to the Patriots and he goes for 1,500 yards. And it's like, what just happened?
Yeah.
Not 50, okay, 1,500 is way too much. Excuse me. Over 1,000 or like a good season. I'll say a good season. I'm backtracking a lot. I'll say a good season just because we write Belichick off, and then he proves us wrong every time. That's why he's the best coach ever. So I wouldn't be surprised if he was productive and if he has a better year than he did the past couple. But again, it's not that like, oh my God, Zeke signed with the Patriots. Like what? So it was a pretty underwhelming signing for me. And again, there's a reason why it took him so long to sign a contract, because I just think the interest wasn't there.
Right.
So
the fall off was major.
Yeah, exactly. So again, not a signing I'm writing home about.
Yeah, not one that I'm writing home about either. I think it was an okay fit for sure. When I saw the news break, I was like, wow, Zeke to the Pats. And I was like, they could use him for sure. When you talk about, JJ Taylor and, some of the older running backs, or not even older running backs, but just running backs on the depth chart that they have in there. I think they have a former USFL or CFL running back on the depth chart. So, they're definitely trying to pick and see what they can actually use. We remember the days of James White, Sweet V, who was great in the dual threat games, and, Sony Michel was in there for a time. And then obviously they pick up Ramondre Stevenson, who I thought was a great pickup. I really enjoyed him coming out of the draft, and he's been pretty solid and really earned that spot being over 1,000-yard rusher. But you look at the fact that the Patriots were 9th worst in rushing yards per game last year. Belichick wanted some protection in that pass game. in the pass blocking game, rather. Obviously, he wanted some of that veteran leadership in the run game. Again, goal line carry, short yardage situations, a veteran and a number 2 back for Ramondre, who just hit it big last year. He's going to need that 1-2 punch when your quarterback, position is a little questionable, whether it is Mac Jones, who did lead you to double-digit wins in his rookie season, but we don't know, / most people, I'm pretty sure, don't believe that that's the Mac Jones we're still going to get. How much longer does Belichick actually have in this league, being a defensive-minded coach? Like, I'm sure some teams, or not some teams, I'm sure some fans maybe wanted to see a bigger, more effective signing than Ezekiel Elliott, but is it needed? Yeah, absolutely. Their running back depth is really not there, and when you talk about a loaded conference, maybe the best, when you talk about a loaded conference, which is the best in the AFC, when you talk about a loaded division, which might be the best in the NFL, next to the AFC West, next to the AFC North, Belichick had to make a move. And again, it's not going to be one that I'm probably even going to keep up with as the season goes on. If Zeke is able to contribute, then that's great. I hope he does. I have nothing against Zeke. I didn't like the fall off of him as a player. The league, I definitely feel like, was better when Zeke Elliott was performing at his peak and just overall was performing at that higher level, which he is past that. He is on the other side of the prime age in the league, especially as a running back, and I think the contract reflects that as well. Before we get into the last topic of the show, were there any other landing spots that you possibly would have liked for Ezekiel Elliott, or maybe even a place that you wanted to see him go after he was unemployed for almost 2.5 months?
I think the Dolphins would have been a good one. And I think the Dolphins would have been a good one for Dalvin Cook as well, just because I think they do have more of a hole there. I think the Panthers would have been another good one.
I was kind of thinking the Panthers.
Yeah. Those are the two main ones that I thought he would go to. But I think the Patriots, I guess, again, kind of make sense.
Right.
But those are kind of my two main ones. But then when you went to the Patriots, I was like, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I can side with some of those. The Dolphins, I was kind of thinking about at first, but I know they've got, I was really hoping they brought in Dalvin. I was like, man, that would be crazy. But I know
they have that standout Devon Achane, who's been fantastic for them.
Achane, absolute speedster. Yeah, I think he's going to be great in his rookie year. I was thinking possibly Cincinnati, just for that guy to be in those short yardage situations, maybe even more pass protection for Joe Burrow, who is, manipulating the pocket at times, playing a lot of the gun like we see in the NFL today. Maybe even the Steelers to complement a Najee Harris. Najee really feels like a young buck version, of a Ezekiel Elliott. And then maybe even the Los Angeles Rams as well, maybe like to see a running back get in there on their depth chart. But I will say the landing spots for Zeke didn't feel too major. They didn't feel like he had a big market. Like Dalvin Cook, I did a whole damn segment on who could sign Dalvin Cook. The whole league should have been calling for Dalvin Cook. Maybe a quarter of the league, or a quarter of the league, so an eighth of the league was actually calling about Ezekiel Elliott. And again, I'm not taking anything away from him. But this prime situation right here with this team and the state that they're in and the state that this player's in and with the contract shows you specifically why the running back position is being devalued. And as we finish up episode 34 of the NFL with AJL, at the NFL with AJL, at the Back Pocket Podcast on all social media and podcast platforms, we have some news that I wish we had more news on. But the topic is absolutely undeniable. And I hear the way you're sighing. I see the way it's affecting you already. I felt the same way because this movie has a special place in our hearts.
Yeah.
Michael Oher, a.k.a. Big Mike, who was taken in by the Tuohys. The movie The Blind Side, as we all know and love, Michael Oher is now coming forward 7 years after the end of his NFL career, which was in 2016. He's claiming The Blind Side is a lie. He was tricked into the Tuohys' conservatorship. He was not adopted, and he has now filed a lawsuit against them to where he can be repaid for all of the money that he did not make on the movie, to where he can have his claims and ultimately just get justice for how he feels like he was done wrong. And yes, this clearly is personal. Yes, it clearly took some time. He played in 8 seasons, retired in 2016. He began exploring why he didn't receive profits off of the movie because the entire Tuohy family did.
Mm-hmm.
He began exploring it after he retired. His lawyer looked into it and found that there was not an adoption, but simply a conservatorship in place. Before I just kind of get into, the overall meat of it, man, I mean, how did this hit home with you? We know that just as the world goes on, like it's 2023, social media, people are always going to be coming for folks when it possibly comes to money. But this one feels a little different because I don't know if you're necessarily familiar with the Gypsy Rose case. It was about a girl who basically faked a lot of disabilities, ends up
I have
murdering
never.
her mother. And then
Jesus.
people figure out that, holy crap, that was the girl that we thought, had cancer and we were building houses and taking her to Disney World. It kind of feels like that to me. And if you want after the show and anyone that's listening, look up the Gypsy Rose case on YouTube. Prepare to have your mind fucking blown because I feel like we're about to have our mind blown with this blindside story as it unfolds. He gets a lawsuit filed back in February of this year. Let me give you the floor though, man. I mean, how did this hit for you? Seriously.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like ruined childhood. This, obviously big movie, really, really, obviously great movie. And I think the whole thing about the movie is this is a great family. They're doing a good thing. They're providing this kid with a good life. They're the reason he's able to be successful. They're the reason he's able to go on and be in the NFL.
Yep. And of course, it's a white Christian loaded family.
Yeah, exactly.
And a young black unfortunate kid. And no racist thing. It's just, of course, it's got to play out like that.
No, exactly. Exactly. It's just like stereotype on stereotype. So it's just like, obviously, I wouldn't say heartbreaking, but it's kind of one of those things where it's just like it ruins your day for about 10 minutes, So I'll never forget. I was in the car with my family. We were going to see my grandparents, and I was like, come on, dude, like really?
Yeah.
I was like, this got to be, and obviously just, we don't, like you said, we don't have all the details. So like, again, he might be completely lying. Yeah. So I guess we'll have to see, but I very highly doubt a guy who was given this much, theoretically, before all this, was given all of this by this family, if he would go and just lie behind their backs and do this. But yeah, obviously, gutted for him if this is true, just because it's like, that just really, it's like, wow, like all of that was just fake. All of that family and all of that love and all of that, seeming support was only because you saw me as kind of a bank, as a dispenser of money. Yeah, and, exactly. So go ahead. Yeah.
No, you're good. That's one thing. Cause as I read it, I was about to sit down in the barber chair yesterday and the report comes across my phone and I'm like, whoa. And, I'm sitting there reading it and I'm trying to make sure I get my point correct because the way that it hit for me was, I don't believe I have my point together. So I'll get on to.
No, go ahead. Take your time. It's a sensitive topic because it's kind of like, how do you approach it as a, go ahead. Take your time.
Yeah. So, I mean, okay, this is what I was going to say. As much as we could sit here and say, oh, the actions weren't real, or maybe the love wasn't real, or what they did for him wasn't real. That's the crazy things is those things did still happen, and that help still was achieved to get to that 1% of the 1% in the NFL and make that multi-million-dollar contract, from 2009 to 2016. So my mind kind of went there for a second. I'm like, wow, that's some real pieces of work to just, in my mind, it's like, oh, all those good things went away that they did, but they didn't. They still did deliver those things for him. But to know, and I'll get into some details here that I think is just going to kind of bring it full circle, to know that it was a conservatorship and not an actual adoption. Y'all remember the part of the movie where the NCAA tries to tell Big Mike that the Tuohys only want him to go to Ole Miss for their benefit? You remember that? It's getting towards the back half of the movie. I mean, if you've seen the movie, you remember it, right?
Yeah.
Y'all remember that part. The NCAA literally goes to Big Mike and says the Tuohys only want you to go to Ole Miss because you know that they're vested in that college, right? You know that they are traditional annual donors, hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars that they pour into the University of Ole Miss. Did you know that all the family went to Ole Miss, even Big Mike's tutor that they hired so he could pass in high school to get to Ole Miss was an Ole Miss alumni.
Yeah.
And then Big Mike confronts him about it. Confronts Sandra Bullock, obviously, who's played as Leanne, and said, don't you dare lie to me. And you felt that because Big Mike being in the hood, taken from that family, taken out of that family, taken in by that family, everything that was given to him. I mean, the Tuohys were loaded. I mean, they remember in the movie just talking about all of the restaurants that they own, all the property that they had, and the Tuohys were, some bigwigs back then. No doubt about it. But a couple of crazy things here that just really kind of rounded out. So in his 2011 memoir, I Beat the Odds, written by Michael Oher, he wrote that the Tuohys said there wasn't a difference between conservatorship and adoption. Quote, they explained it to me that it means pretty much the exact same thing as adoptive parents, but that the laws were just written in a way that took my age into account, the memoir read. However, as his lawyer noted, the adoption into the family would have allowed Michael Oher to handle his own financial affairs. A conservatorship gave that power over completely to the Tuohys, which means they can make all of his financial decisions, which means they can make all of his business decisions. Basically, he had signed a lot over to them, and especially because it was a conservatorship. The Blind Side had a budget of $30 million and grossed 10 times that at the box office. It was a $300 million movie, one of the biggest of the year. We know how iconic it was. Based on the standard cut, the movie company and just the movie in general netted about $175 million of that. So they paid out about 125 M's to everyone.
Yeah.
The Tuohy children reportedly got $225,000 plus 2.5% of net proceeds. That's $4.6 million each. Sandra Bullock was paid $5 million for the movie. Michael Oher saw nothing. So I don't have an issue with a guy who a movie was made about and realized that it wasn't adoption, it was conservatorship. For him to go and get justice for all of that and really to just bring that to the limelight, I'm not mad about it. And I've seen people say, oh, why wait 10 years, 15 years after it happens? Why wait 7 years after you're retired from the league? First of all, you can't just go slap a lawsuit on a family like the Tuohys at any point in time, especially considering when you're a professional athlete. He had to go hire his lawyer. I'm sure there was a lot of digging. Maybe something financial happened to where it got personal. I don't really know. But Sandra Bullock was paid $5 million, rightfully so. She was, the A-lister of that movie. She looked great. She played a great role. I mean, everybody was talking about it. The Tuohy children making $4.6 million each. Michael Oher gets nothing. And to know, again, I really think that part about the memoir, when the Tuohys said there wasn't a difference between conservatorship and adoption, the laws were just written in a way that took my age into account, turns everything over to him. I don't know. That one was very shocking to me. I don't want to
tell me about it.
I don't want to believe it.
Yeah.
I didn't want to believe it. I'm really hoping that, that we get more information, that we get more news, that we actually get to figure out the truth about what's actually happening, because they did help him. They did get him to a platform. Yes, his name, image, and likeness, however you want to look at it, wasn't benefited from the movie. And the Tuohy children got paid, but Big Mike, as Michael Oher, the representation of him didn't. Definitely a wild situation. Y'all get in the chat, get in the comments, let us know what you think about The Blind Side all possibly being a lie. Michael Oher is pursuing this very, very heavily, and it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I definitely will have some updates coming on this if we do see it play out in the near future. That was episode 34 of the NFL with AJL. I'm going to hit this outro music, brother, and we'll get out of here. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That was episode 34 of the NFL with AJL. I really appreciate everyone tuning in tonight live on a Tuesday. Please make sure to like the stream and share wherever you're at before you get out of here. I know where it's all at. Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. Please subscribe on all podcast platforms. Subscribe on both of the YouTube channels at the NFL with AJL, at the Back Pocket Pod. You already know about the QR code in the corner of the screen as well, right there by key and scan it for every bit of the NFL with AJL, social media, and podcast content. We chopped it up about preseason quarterbacks. I love the boat skin. We chopped it up about the Blind Side possibly being a lie. Dalvin Cook and Ezekiel Elliott were signed. Man, before we get out of here, Kian, again, I appreciate you joining me. Let the folks know where they can find you and overall what you got going on with your show.
Thank you so much. Obviously, like you said, first of all, everyone make sure you like and make sure you subscribe. Adam, I know, puts in so much work, as you saw by all the stuff. Because I know as someone who does this, all the banners, all the being able to click the stuff at the right time, it all takes a ton of work. So Adam, obviously a ton of respect for you. I really appreciate you having me on. But like you said, you can find us at the Back Pocket Pod. We're on YouTube, we're on Instagram, we're on TikTok. We do obviously NFL. We just recently started doing soccer, football, whatever you call it. We do podcasts and stuff like that. I have 3 other hosts. Obviously, I am going to college soon, so we're going to be trying to get a ton of as much content as we can up during that time. But yeah, you can follow us all there. Hopefully, we're going to have Adam on. Hopefully, I'll be back on sometime, so you'll see me around. But thank you so much again, Adam.
Yes, bro, 100%. At the NFL with AJL, at the Back Pocket Podcast on all social media platforms. This was episode 34 of the NFL with AJL. We'll see y'all soon.